Almost there. I promise. Oh, okay. We are live. I got to make sure we're live in the Summit platform though. Sorry, you guys. Everything's running so slow. I'm going to get started in just a second. Okay. Ah, technical difficulties. Hold, please. All right. Let's see if that works. Getting started momentarily. I promise. There we are. Yes. Okay. We are live, people. Woohoo! Everybody say woohoo. We did it. We're here. We made it happen. Okay. Amazing. Welcome, 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 attendees to our first live panel. I hope you are enjoying the Females on Fire Summit so far. I know we are. We're loving seeing you guys in the chat boxes, and we've had so many good sessions already. I know Quinn kicked us off first thing this morning, and it was so good. So these live panels are just a way for you to get to see the speakers in real time and get some extra awesome value from them. And so for this panel today, we're going to be talking about women making money, right? Because that's what we want. We all want to make some money. Yes, yes, ladies. Hand pump for that. So we're going to talk all about growing our revenue. And these ladies are the best at that. Like they have all the strategies and all the things, and they are doing so much revenue wise. And so I'm really excited for you to get to hear from them. So, speakers, here's what I'm going to ask of you really quick. Will you give a quick introduction because they haven't met some of you yet? Super short, just hi, my name is, here's what I do. They'll get to know you more from the summit if they haven't already. So keep this like 15 seconds, but just to give them an idea of what you do before they learn from you. Jacqueline, we'll kick off with you and then you guys just jump right in.
Here, I gotta get quicker with the unmute button. Hi guys, I'm Jacqueline Cox. I am the owner of Jacqueline Hope Design. It's a small design studio in Seattle, Washington. We're a team of 4 ladies, designers and developers. We do everything from logos and branding to web design and SEO, and we work mostly with women and female entrepreneurs and small business owners.
I'm Andrea Mack. I'm a revenue strategist out of Chicago. And what I do is I mostly help women grow their revenue through sales skills, launching a new revenue stream, pricing, or profitability.
Hi, I'm Linda Rufinak, and I'm based in Louisville, Kentucky. I'm a certified exit planning advisor, and I work with businesses to help them figure out how to grow, scale, and maximize their value.
Hi there, I'm Julie C. Butler, also known as the Summit Queen. I help coaches on the other side of 40 host their own virtual summits.
Hi, everybody. My name is Quinn Tempest. And yes, if you're wondering, that is my real name. I've been told I sound like Marvel's next superhero, which would be amazing because I live in Arizona. It's going to be 83 today. So my superpower would be to control the weather. But for now, I'm a business and brand strategist, and I am the founder of the Create Your Purpose Collective, which is a community for women solopreneurs to grow their business on purpose and with purpose. And I'm excited to be here today.
Gwen, we're gonna have to connect more because I am Vanessa Wild, and it is wild, and Arizona as well. So I help coaches and course creators make more money through their launches as a copywriter and strategist. So your words can get you sales, and lots of them if you do it right. So I'm excited to talk to you guys tomorrow, I think it is, more on this and today.
Amazing. And we just had Frenchie jump in. Hi, Frenchie.
Hi.
If you will do a super quick intro for our
Yeah.
attendees and just keep it like 15 seconds because they'll get to know you from the summit.
Awesome. I'm Frenchie Ferenczi. I live in New York City. I am a growth strategist for small business owners. I also am a fractional leader for women's health startups. So I do all sorts of things, but I always come back to this idea that our job as business owners is to figure out the simplest and quickest path to grow our revenue, and everything I do centers around that. So that's me.
Love that. We have some amazing ladies here. So I see some of you in the chat saying that you can't hear anything or it's not working. So make sure you refresh that page. If you can hear this, hopefully. I know some of you are reminding each other to refresh. So thank you for that. We are going to keep it going. I've got a couple questions for you ladies. Just jump in, unmute yourselves when, when things are moving for you and when you've got some thoughts. And for our attendees, if you're listening live, if you're listening to the replay, you'll just have to reach out to the speakers, on their Instagrams and ask them questions there and give them a little follow first. But if you're listening live, pop your questions in the chat as we go through. Show our speakers some love. Share your takeaways as we're going through. If you love something they said, drop some fire emojis in the chat. We love that. And we want to let them know that their time was well spent today. But we're also going to answer some of your questions at the end live. So this is your chance to pick their brains a little bit. So make sure that you are popping your questions in the chat. So I'm going to throw this out there to our speakers first and foremost. What has been your biggest revenue driver? You can only pick one. In the last year, what specifically are you doing in your business? It could be a program, it could be something like partnerships, it can be an event that you do, like whatever you want to say here. But what has been your biggest revenue driver in the last year alone? And why do you think that is? Why does it work so well?
I'll go. I'll hit the ground running. For me, it's hosting live events like you're doing, Haley. It has impacted my business in so many ways. I think that sometimes we go in and we're like, oh my God, it's such a big job or whatever. But if you're well organized and if you plan it and you give yourself enough time to plan it, not only are you growing your revenue, but you can grow your email list, you're growing your community, your audience, and you're growing your income. But you're not just making an impact on your income at the time of the summit. You're making an impact on your income for years to come. And over the last couple of years, I've hosted 3 summits of my own. And Haley, I'm sure if you did the data, you would have this too. But 42% of my income comes from hosting summits. So it's played a big part in growing my community, my visibility, my authority, and my income in the end as well. So
my answer would be far less interesting. Most of my revenue comes from consulting. So I actually, while I have a purpose-driven business to really help women scale their businesses to advance economic empowerment, in full honesty, it's usually companies that want to buy my time to come in and help their sales teams or help launch a new revenue. Or when private equity buys up a bunch of businesses, sales and revenue actually is a common unifier. So when things are going really well, I'm brought in. And when things are a little bumpy or need spot attention, I'm brought in. So I would say the majority of my revenue comes from consulting around meeting a specific growth target and working one-on-one in the trenches, like hand to hand with specific coaching and helping to say, here's what I observe, here are my insights, and here are my recommendations for what you can do next. So far less exciting than Julie's, but it's the honest answer.
I'll add to it is that really what I've been successful at this last year has been focusing on doing more workshops and strategic planning sessions where whether it's doing a workshop for a women's group coming in and showing a large group on how they can increase the value of their business. And then from there, that becomes a lead generator, or working with a company and helping them with their strategic planning, which a lot of times starts out with the annual planning. But what I've seen happen is that then has turned into quarterly strategic planning and then generally some coaching for their senior leadership team. So I go out and do things. Maybe I'm not making a huge amount of money on the first thing that I do, but it has additional revenue that piles on afterwards.
I think one thing I'll add on to this is a little bit of nuance that I've learned over the past few years. I come from a corporate content marketing background, so it was a lot of traffic-based strategies, which I think we're all familiar with because we see them all the time. The Amy Porterfields, the Jenna Kutchers of the world, we see the opt-ins, the ads. It's visible to us every single day. And it tends to become a thing that we think we need to do in our business. And for me personally, for many years that worked. And I was bringing a lot of people on the kind of top of the funnel, as so to speak, and bringing them into my fold. But as the online ecosystem has changed, I think we've all felt it. The algorithm is different. How we reach people has been impacted. I've kind of gone back to the basics and really focused on relationships. So it doesn't mean that traffic-based strategies aren't important and helpful, but I think we have to remember that people buy from people they like, and people like, they feel people they can trust, and trust is built through relationships. So for me, I think the biggest revenue driver has always been speaking. That's been always my main thing, but following that up with relationship building, like really authentic, not just to get to an end, but to really create a trust and connection with someone that can either become a referral or become a client or become just someone who knows someone who can connect me with someone. So that's what I'm really leaning into. And I think it's something that many of us can learn from, especially with the shifts in the marketing and business ecosystem that we felt over the last few years.
I just wanted to build a little bit on Quinn because I think she kind of described my business exactly. So I've never been big on social media. I don't get leads off of the internet. I get leads from local business, networking, even like big national, nationwide networking groups because I am a service. I do design work and websites. And so when people can see me, they realize that they can trust me, and then my goal is to solve their problems. And so that's my big revenue source, is solving people's problems through design, design projects. So being able to, attract those people and then just kind of hand them what they need on a silver platter has brought in a lot of growth this year.
What I have noticed in terms of like where the revenue is coming from is actually repurposing and recreating some of my past programs, right? So I saw that certain formats weren't working as much. I had a launch where it was like it was formerly a 6-week program. The launch didn't go very well. I transitioned it. I was like, what happens if I make this a 2-day program at a lower price point, right? But really give people back their time and charge accordingly. And that has like been just a theme across all of my offers, which is just really kind of tapping into this idea that people aren't just investing money, they're also investing time, and they don't always trust themselves to complete and follow through. So how can I tap into that need, which is, getting their time back and also the follow through, and repurpose my offers to fit into that. And so by doing that, by really listening to the customer demand and really understanding where their heads are at and what their behaviors are like and adapting to that, that's been a super valuable way for me to protect my revenue, grow my revenue, and not have to do too much work on my end to like rebuild it all.
I'm right with Quinn and Jacqueline as far as that, building those connections, building and nurturing just friendships really within the industry and connecting with them, seeing how you can serve them. So when I get on podcasts, it's not just I jump off it and run. Any of my interviews where I am being interviewed on that podcast, I also go and talk to them at the end. How can I serve you? Is there anything that I can support you with? Because that builds a connection between you and the person that is running that podcast.
I think everybody jumped in, right? I love that. I love that each of you gave such a different answer. And it just goes to show you that there's so many different things you can focus on when it comes to building revenue. And that's why I think I was most excited for this panel and wanted to kick off with it, because I think when we think about making money, we start to get a little like, oh, what do I do? Do I go this direction? This person says do this. Oh, this person, I want to model my business after them and they do all of these things. And then it's like, what do we do first? And so I love that you all kind of gave a different answer of like, it's really possible for you to pick a totally different lane than where everybody else is going and watch it actually grow your revenue. And I heard a lot of different things about mining the data, and I actually get more revenue from my initial revenue. Like Linda was saying, it's like, oh, I get them with this, but then it grows like so consistently because of that. And we'll kind of dive into that point in a second, Linda. So you set me up great for that. And, there's just so many points there that I think were really, really great. Julie, did you have like one more thing to add? Yeah, go.
I just quickly wanted to add to that. Like, I know we've all given different strategies and different ways that we've made money, but at the end of the day, what truly really matters is that you have to do what feels aligned for you, because you can do what I'm doing, but if it's out of alignment, it's just not going to work, right? So you really have to follow your heart and do the thing that it feels right, and because there's no right or wrong way of doing it anymore, right?
I love that. I love that so much. Yeah. Somebody in the chat just said squirrel mode activated. And that's what it feels like, right? It's like, oh, I could go all these different directions and do all of these different things. What do I do? And so I love that you threw that in there at the last second, Julia, of just like, make sure you're doing what works for you. And, that's the beauty of this summit is you can pull so many different strategies and tactics and pieces, but then you've got to run it through your own filter and say, okay, I don't want to overwhelm myself. I don't want to burn out. What do my people need? What am I good at? What am I good at serving them with? And every single one of you just proved that you've focused in on something, whatever it is. And that's what's really driving your revenue. And so I love that. I kind of want to, this is a similar question, but I want you to give me a different answer because I think you're all very capable of doing so. What is something unique that you've done that has amplified your revenue? Even if it's not your biggest revenue driver, what's something that you maybe tried or maybe just a spin on the current thing you normally do? But what is something that you maybe kind of surprised yourself with? But you're just like, that actually worked, and I may want to dive more into that in the future.
I'd love to go first, and it's actually something I'm trying right now. So before we move on to that, I just want to quickly add that not all revenue is also created the same. Like when you talk about revenue, you have to have a conversation about profit as well, because revenue and the time, all of it has to be considered in addition to your passion. But you also have to follow the math. Like, where is the math and where's the sustainability and where's the ROI? So I feel like that just needs to be said in addition to when you're comparing your options for revenue streams and when you're deciding like which direction to head. So for me, I always say I sort of did it backward. Like I launched a successful consulting firm, but I really want to help individual entrepreneurs and I want to help women scale. So I'm like trying to swim downstream, for lack of better word, which is a good problem to have, but a different, unique problem to have, if you will. So what I've learned after doing this for a long time is that not everybody wants to become a sales expert. They did not get into their own business to have to sell. They don't want necessarily the certification. They don't want to spend the hours on it. They want me to tell them like, what do I do next? How do I respond to this? What do I do if this happens? Where do I look next? So I'm about to launch. So in full disclosure, I don't know how much revenue this will make. I'll come back next year and tell you if it was a success or not. But I'm about to launch a sales hotline, like a helpline, where you don't have to hire me on an hourly basis. You don't have to buy a big ticket consulting. You just get an answer when you need it. And it's at a low cost monthly recurring revenue for me, but also provides access all built on my own methodology, and it's via text versus web. So I share this as an example. Again, I have no idea yet if it will flop. My data and my math says it will be successful. But for me, when I think about scaling my revenue, I can't think about not scaling my impact. So I'm launching this product in a way that hopefully helps me meet both of those, but that's something new that I am about to launch next month.
That is so awesome and so exciting. First of all, I love a hotline idea, so I'm here for it. I can't wait to hear how it goes.
And do people still say hotline or helpline?
Well,
I don't know.
I think
Debate, jury's
hotline. Isn't
out.
the hotline bling? I realized that was like a long time ago.
What's Hotline Bling?
A Drake song.
Oh, Googling.
Okay, we're showing our age now, ladies. We're showing our age.
But I think that's amazing. And the thing that I kind of just wanted to share in terms of something that's working is I feel like a lot of times when it comes to launching, everything gets bucketed under this like capital L launch. Like I need to write a million emails. I need to do this like 250 slide deck, and then I have to like nail the pitch in my webinar and all this stuff. And one of the things that's worked extremely well for me this year has been like what I'm calling PS launching, which is like a full launch sequence repeatedly, but in my PSs of my emails for a period of time. And it's the only time I mention it. The emails are compelling and, good and engaging. And then it's like, PS, by the way, if you want to get in on this program, the doors are open right now. But not having it be the central tenet has worked really well, I think. And again, coming back to listening to our audience, for my audience, right? For my audience who may not like to be pushed into sales, but who may want the support, so on and so forth. So I think experimenting with like not everything needing to be this like big launch, but sometimes we just have promotional periods or campaigns or whatever you want to call it, and seeing what works for you. Because I'm like, take the easy way out. Like if all I have to do is a bunch of PSs, why am I going to do the other thing?
I love that. I want to add in a different thing because I think we've talked about some little launch strategies or formats, and I want to bring up more of almost an approach to revenue growth that is something I don't see a lot of people think of. For example, I work with a lot of purpose-driven entrepreneurs. I think many of us on this panel are driven by a deeper passion. And I think the instinct that comes up with that is, well, we want our business and our entire business, all of our offers to feel sparkly, magical, like we are a unicorn all the time. And my mindset as a business strategist from a long game perspective is that it's not about having all purpose in all parts of your business, but it's more purpose more of the time. And so one of the things I always talk about with my clients and my community members is that good things take time. So for instance, this was many years ago, but I used to have 97% of my revenue come from one-on-one clients. I knew I wanted to diversify that because I was looking ahead to becoming a mother. And I was like, how am I going to step away for maternity leave and be able to do this? And so it took me a good 3 years to shift some of that revenue to create a new offer. And I even had a year, I jokingly call it the year of the dentists, because I literally took on like 5 dentist clients because I spoke at a dental conference, which is a different life. And, I took the revenue from those projects from non-ideal clients to reinvest into the business vision that I had and grow this new offer that I now have been running for 5 years, which is my community. But it took time. It took 3 years of taking things that weren't dreamy, ideal, Instagrammable, but to reinvest that into what I really wanted. So I think that's my biggest thing is good things take time. Don't be afraid to take the money where you can and let that money serve where you want to go next.
I just wanted to hop on too real quick and just say like what has made such a big difference in my business this year is like monthly recurring clients. And so I started to pull in more like monthly retainers, and depending on what your business is and what your services are, that might look different for you. But I'm taking on monthly clients a lot for like SEO work, and having that monthly reoccurring revenue that I can always depend on has kind of created this like money foundation for my business. So I have this like set amount that I know is coming in every month. I don't have to depend and stress about these one-off clients that when I'm done, I have to find the next one. And so maybe if you're kind of struggling with that like project-based model where it's like I finished a project and now I have to hunt down the next project, see if there's either some like passive income streams you can build or some like monthly retainer type, funds that can come in that you can depend on every month that are not like directly related to like your time and your hours per day in that moment because you're gonna burn yourself out trying to spin those wheels around over and over and over again.
I oh I just wanted to two of us unmuted. Sorry, Linda. Someone posted in the comments something about experimenting with smaller bits of content rather than just big ticket offers. And I only have started experimenting with this, and I want to talk about my biz bestie, but she's not a speaker at the summit. However, this is what she does. She leads with low ticket offers and she has a bunch of them, but they're all related to, she's, a really great business coach. And so all of her little offers tie into who she is as a coach, and in the end turn into people wanting to hire her as one-on-one coaching, her one-on-one high ticket coaching offer or whatever. And this works really, really, really well for her, and she's kind of mastered that, which is really good to, it's great to see like the different things that we can do that no matter what, it works. Like you can lead with low ticket offers, like anywhere from $7 to $50, and then if you do a really good job inside of that low ticket offer and you just can lead them right straight to your coaching program or one-on-one coaching or whatever it is that you do, right? So
my approach might be a little anti-intuitive, but it goes back to Quinn from a purpose-driven standpoint. I've been fortunate in my career, and so a lot of what I'm doing now is very purpose-driven. So I actually will do a 45-minute one-on-one with any business owner for free, just to get to know them, learn about their business. The interesting part is I learn as much from those calls as they do, and it informs the rest of my business. And I believe in building my brand based upon my reputation. And my reputation, I really want it to be, is being approachable. And Quinn, you said it earlier, it's all relationship based, right? And putting yourself out there and, reaching out to someone as an advisor can be a really intimidating experience. You're really worried about how much it's going to cost. Can I do this? Can I not? But I do encourage people to reach out and take advantage of some of those different offers that are out there, the lower dollar ones, because you might find the right person that fits for you. And part of the reason why I do it, that first session complimentary, is because one, I want to get to know you and I want you to get to know me. There are clients I want to work with, clients I don't want to work with, and there's clients that want to work with me and clients that don't want to work with me. So it gives us a chance to get to know each other and get that chemistry. But I do think, Andrea, I'm going to steal your idea for the hotline because I think that's fantastic. It's a way to combine your advice and Julie's advice, into figuring out how to make a little bit off of that. So I love it. Thank you guys for sharing.
I am loving it. I'm just like sitting back, taking this all in. So then I get to the end, I'm like, oh, I need to say my part. But one of the things that I had done this year is I spoke up and shared other ways that I could support a client, like clients that I have. So I was a copywriter for a client and I saw opportunities for their marketing to be up leveled and different. And I'm like, do you see this like right here? It's like not impact, like creating that impact that you want, or not bringing enough money or whatever it may be. And they actually ended up putting me in their marketing spot. So, and overseeing it while also doing some copy. So don't be afraid to showcase other knowledge that you have, other ways that you can support your clients, instead of just keeping yourself in this box, in this title that they see you as.
So many good answers there. And the one like universal thing that I'm hearing in all of your different ways is you just have to be really, really intentional about where you're spending your time to create more money, right? That intentionality. I know Quinn, you touched on it, a lot, but everybody kind of infused it into what they were saying in their own way. And so can we dive a little bit further into that for a second? How do you decide for you personally which revenue stream to pursue? And what is your advice for the people listening that are like, I have all these different directions I could go. What do I do? How do I know if it's going to make money? And Andrea, you're saying, I'm doing this hotline. I have no idea if it's going to work. My numbers say it should, but I don't know. But I'm trying it anyway, which I think it'll work because it's genius, right? But all of you, how do you decide when it's time to go say, okay, I want to grow my revenue. Let me create this new thing, or let me tweak this thing I already have, or let me, try this strategy on top of it. How do you decide what the right move is for you in the moment?
I'll go first. I'm gonna go completely like different than your question, and I'm gonna be like last year, I actually went through a shift and I wasn't feeling in alignment with my business anymore. I wasn't passionate about it. And not because I wasn't good at it, but it just didn't feel like there was no motivation. A lot of life changes came along with that. However, what I decided to do, and I'll talk about my experience because maybe there's some listeners that are like, oh my God, that's so me. And I actually had like a heart to heart. And I was like, what is it that I'm passionate about doing? And I'm like, summits. I can talk about virtual summits all day long. And I was like, you know what? I'm like, and all in divine timing, but I finally took the leap. I took that courage to say, I'm leaving the old Julie behind and I'm moving into the new Julie, AKA the Summit Queen, what people call me, and becoming that virtual summit coach. But sometimes changing what you do, and really does it matter what your title is at the end of the day? But however, like in doing so, in shifting to in that direction, and everything fell into place so easy. And I'm still going through the motions of like, okay, what do I lead with? And it's getting closer and closer to what I want to do. And I listen to my intuition a lot. Generator, if any of you are human design, if you love human design, you'll know that I listen to, probably a lot of us here actually listen to our intuition a lot. And you know what? I wake up in the morning, I'm like, this is what I want to do. I want to lead with I have some really great freebies. I have some really good low ticket offers. And I want to lead with my group coaching program because it's gold. And so that's like over the last couple of months, that's kind of what I've been, feeling into and kind of like tapping into as I'm building it. And everything feels so aligned. Everything feels so good. I love talking about it, the passion, the fire in my belly. And because of that, all of the ideas keep dropping in, and it's been just so good.
I'm actually going through a transition myself right now. I had a baby just over a month ago, and so a new season of life. This is number 4, so it's a busy life. But before, all my kids, my youngest was in kindergarten, so I had all the time in the world. So I could just run and do and say yes to more opportunities. And now baby's here and I'm like, whew, my time is a lot shorter. Like, well, I can work a little bit because he's young. So I can work a little bit more because he's sleeping. I'm also thinking ahead. Well, he's going to be moving around soon and he's going to need my attention more. And so always doing done for you is not realistic for my life. And so that season of life is causing me to reevaluate and look at, well, what would allow me to show up and serve my clients in a similar capacity without always doing that done for you and supporting them with that. So that the changes of seasons and looking at what are your priorities right now in this season of life. And for me, that's that presence. And so what do I need to change in order to allow that to happen more?
I wanted to just quickly add, I also have 4 kids. And so special little club of entrepreneurs of 4 kids, like not for the faint of heart. I was just going to share, obviously I'm a revenue strategist, and so I help people think through this all the time, but I want to really share actually what got me to choose my revenue streams. I was a CMO, a chief marketing officer of a law firm, so I had a very professional B2B corporate background. And when I was deciding what I wanted to do for myself, I wrote down every single idea that I had. I was like, I'm going to open a soup truck. When people get off the train, they're going to grab soup. I'm going to open a bookshop. I'm going to be a writer. I like came up with like any idea that remotely sounded interesting to me. And my husband would actually be so mortified if I shared this, but I made like a manual version of Excel to like ring, like, how excited am I about this? How, scalable is this? How? And then I was like, these are the top three. But I hired a coach at the time who had me do this exercise, this piece of homework. Um, and I was like, this is so cheesy and lame. I'm not going to do it. But I am an A+ type student. So of course I was going to do my homework anyway. She had me write down ad nauseum what my day looks like in 3 years from now. Like, what time do I wake up? What clothes am I wearing? What did I eat for breakfast? How long was I eating breakfast? I was like, this is so like, what? Like, I don't know. I'm paying you all this money to like have me write this out. But I did it. And it was very interesting to see what patterns existed and what things were nowhere on there and what pieces were like really important. And it actually became um, like a stopgap or a bumper lane for things to say no to. So immediately out of corporate, there were like a couple of private equity agencies or companies that approached me. And it's pretty alluring, right? Like, ooh, make all this quick money. And I was like, this doesn't align with what I said is where I want to go. And so it's a little bit woo woo, especially to balance out after I told you always follow the math. But for me in particular, it was most important to say, like, no, that's not aligned with how I want to spend my days. And how you spend your days is one piece of it, to your point, Julie. And the impact you're having, to your point, Vanessa, like those two have to have a conversation. So
I think
Thank
there's
you.
like a balance. Oh, sorry.
No, it's okay. Go ahead, Jacqueline.
I
I'll go
think
after you.
there's, yeah, I think there's a little bit of a balance too with your business of like pursuing what you love and what you're passionate about with pursuing what makes you money. So, and sometimes those things sync up and sometimes they don't always, you know? Like for example, when I'm doing search engine optimization, that is a very tedious task. It is a checklist, it is code, it is digging through Google Analytics, and I don't want to be there all day long, but I'm finding that small business owners will pay for it. So, sometimes we have to find these revenue streams or these offerings or these services that, don't feel bad. They still feel good, but bring you money so you can pursue the things that you have more passion about. And sometimes you have to juggle both or choose one or the other in different stages of your life, and figure out what that profit actually is. And if you are, pursuing something you're super passionate about, but you run the numbers and you run your overhead and you run your taxes and all of your expenses together and you end up making like $7 an hour, like I hate to break it to you, it's probably not the best decision for you in that time, at least, right? Until you can figure out how else to approach it. So I just see like a lot of messaging online of just like pursue your passions and align with your heart and but sometimes in business we don't always get to do that, or sometimes we have to do the more tedious stuff in order to do that. So it's okay. It's okay to be kind of juggling both sides of that coin in your business.
I'm glad you went before me because I feel like you mentioned two areas that I think are really important, right? Which is like your personal passion and the money. I think the third piece that I often think we don't talk about enough is actually our customers and the insights that we get from the people who are buying from us. What I see a lot in entrepreneurs is like the pursuit of novelty. And often, like, it's either pursuit of novelty or being like super self-referential. And while those are inputs, right, those are data points as I see it, there's a really crucial data point in terms of our effectiveness to sell and achieve product market fit, which is what do our people need from us and want from us and what will they pay for? And I think oftentimes we forget to listen to our audience as our core source of truth about what our business should be doing, but our business is nothing without our customers. And so a lot of times people will be like, but I don't have that much customer data. I'm just getting started. Like, even if you don't have your own customer data, you can do things like looking at Answer the Public, going through forums, like understanding what people's needs are, where their challenges are, how you can step in to support them. But really making sure, for example, right, like there's a lot of conversation around scalable offers. I love a scalable offer. But like if I'm going to hire like a high touch functional medicine doctor, for example. I might not want their scalable offer. I might want their high touch one-on-one support. And that's what I'm looking for because of the type of investment that I'm making. And so I think sometimes we get a lot of messaging of like, oh, I should just have a scalable offer. And maybe you should, but you also need to understand, well, what will your people value? To help inform you. So when you're thinking about whether it's a net new offer or a pivot that you want to make sure that it's validated with your customers.
I want to take this question a little bit differently because I know you kind of asked Haley around when do you decide what to kind of go in on with your offers? And since I'm a business strategist, I tend to zoom out on where my clients are in their business journey. And I find that sense of experimentation is normal and it's essential in the early stages of business. And it doesn't really matter like within the first 2 years or under a revenue number, that's not really important. It's more of how are you operating as an entrepreneur, like your literal entrepreneurial OS system, like your phone. And I think we have to normalize that you're going to try a lot of different offers on, you're going to try a lot of different ways to make money. And when to change that is usually, I think, more of a personal thing. It's when you start to, well, first you can have stalled growth in your business, but also you can start to feel burnt out or you're like in these cycles of overwhelm. And I actually like to reframe that, especially if you're in that stage of experimentation, as a signal that you've outgrown the way of operating in your business and it's time to upgrade. Like literally, you need to go plug your phone in, step away, and recalibrate to the new system because you're seeing a lot of bugs. So in my mindset, if you're seeing those signals, it's time to change how you operate. And it's at that point in your business journey where you can start to think about, okay, where am I making the most profit? And like Jacqueline said, where's the intersection of what really lights me up? And start to look at both the math and the sparkle and start to make decisions on what to let go of versus what more to add. I think that's the biggest thing that I see in my community and frankly, even in myself is this impulse that doing more means doing better, or frankly, making more means making better. And I think we have to really define what that success is for ourselves and also notice like where are we in our business journey? Because some of the things you might be doing are totally normal for where you are, but when you have outgrown it, what got you here won't get you there. So it's kind of knowing where you are and adjusting your activities appropriately.
I'm going to bring it back to where Vanessa started. Because part of what I do is a lot of times I'm working with business owners when they're going through a major transition. They're trying to decide whether they want to scale or grow or whether they want to exit their business. And one of the big questions is, if I exit my business, what am I going to do next? And what I've discovered over the last several years, and I've kind of narrowed it down to 6 things. And when we say currency, we think about money. But there's a lot more currencies in our life. We've got a limited amount of time, money, and focus or energy to invest. And so I've narrowed it down to 6 things. And I really do believe that depending on where you are in your life, you will prioritize these things very differently, which those 6 things are wealth, that health and well-being, achievement, relationships, purpose, and freedom. Now, if you think about those things, and I go back to when I was in my 20s, I'm a little older than some of you guys, but I go back to when I was in my 20s and money and achievement was what I was all about. I wanted to get that next big job. I wanted to hit that next big milestone, all about those things. But as I've kind of grown and Vanessa, like you, when I had kids, my purpose changed quite a bit. My priorities changed. My relationships started to come higher on the list. But there are moments in time when money became at that forefront and a means of trying to address those relationships. But now my big thing is around purpose and freedom. And that's the way I make my decisions about clients that I want to work with, which is, does it fulfill my purpose? And does it still provide me the freedom to take off on Mondays or do what I want to do on a Tuesday or go work out on a Friday? That's the piece that's really important to me. But the more you're aware of where you are on those priorities, the better decisions you'll make. They're more conscious than unconscious. And so, for what it's worth, think about those 6 things, or those 6 things that are important for you, and force rank them. When you force rank them, you'll start to realize really what is important to you. And it can be a little eye-opening when you go, oh, wait a minute, I haven't been living that way, even though those things are the most important to me.
Oh, that was a good one to end on, Linda. You brought it full circle, and I love that. I love that everybody really brought a very unique perspective to that, right? We started on the question, and then we sort of drifted in this kind of different space, and then we came full circle back to the question, and I love that. I love that you guys all have a very different process, right? But somehow kind of all still a little bit the same, because again, it's going back to that intentionality, right? One thing that I did kind of notice is everything everybody's saying kind of involves putting yourself out there, right? Whether it's on a sales call, Linda, like you were maybe talking about earlier, whether it's doing a summit, Julie, like you were mentioning, whether it's trying something totally out of left field, like Andrea's doing with her hotline and being like, I don't know if this is going to work. Let's see what happens. Everybody's kind of doing it in their own way, but you're having to put yourself in the spotlight. And so one of our questions that got asked earlier is, how do you get over your fear of being in the spotlight to reach your audience? And when this popped up in the chat, I thought it was such a good question, because on the surface, you're like, that doesn't have anything to do with revenue, but it really does, because if you can't get over that fear and that mindset of, I have to put myself in this position to make money, then you're not going to make money, right? So kind of, can you briefly, super short, touch on that? How do you get over that fear or that limiting belief or that block, or whatever it is that's kind of like, oh, this is new and I'm nervous. How do you get over that?
Sorry to keep going first, but the amount of conversations I have about this on the regular is overwhelming, because people always say, I don't want to be salesy. Like salesy has become this pejorative term. What I always coach is that if you have something of value that can help someone else, and you are not telling them, whether the channel is social media or your friend on the train or your neighbor, then you're actually doing a disservice to that relationship. So much of, to your point, Haley, that everyone said is about mindset. And if you have something of value, then it is no longer about you being self-promotional or self-serving. It becomes an act of generosity and an act of service. And so that right there is the mindset. If you have something that you believe is valuable, if you don't believe it's valuable, that's probably why maybe it's coming up for you or how you might be perceived. But if you have some way to help, to not give it does a disservice.
I think
there's one word response to that. Amen.
We all have a lot to say here.
Yeah, I was going to say something similar too, Andrea. When we get in this mindset of looking at ourselves, we're doing it wrong, because at the end of the day, we're selling one because there are things, but we have something to deliver them. We have something to support them. We have something that will potentially, I know this is such a overused word, but change their life in a way. And so we need to make sure that we're putting it out there and getting over ourselves, as mean as that sounds. One of the things that I did in the beginning, because it takes reps to do that. It's not just going to happen right away. It takes those reps. Just like you go to the gym, you've got to do those reps, and that's when the muscle develops, and that's when we actually see our arms looking pretty. But as far as what I used to do, I used to get into this now I lost the word, but a pretend person of myself. There's a word for that, but it's not coming to me.
Persona.
But yes, a persona, alter ego, that type of thing. Yes. And I became that person when I would show up for live videos, for sales calls. And it was like, who is that person? What is she like? And then as I would show up as that person in my business, I slowly started developing into that person. So then I didn't have that fear as much as I used to, because I became who I felt I needed to be in order to overcome those fears that were standing in my way.
So I think there's one thing when people often, as I hear, I think we all do, right? I don't want to be salesy, is we've all gotten those LinkedIn messages. It's like, hi, Frenchie Frenzy Strategies. Do you need 35 warm leads every week? And I'm like, well, yeah, but I don't think you're the one who's going to give it to me, right? So I think that there is this feeling of like we see that, and there's like a little bit of fear and anxiety that that's who we need to be, rather than to Andrea's point or Vanessa's point, like actually showing up being like, I can deliver this thing of value to you. So I think that's just one thing to keep in mind, which is like you never need to sell to others in a way that you would not like to be sold to. But that doesn't mean that you should never sell to others. And I think that there's a really important distinction there. The second thing that I think is really funny is I think people sometimes are scared because they feel like people are going to like pity them and buy their thing. And so I'm just here to tell you the really bad news that no one is going to spend their money on you just to do you a favor unless it's like your sister. And like, then, okay, great. Like it's your sister. So I think in general, we forget to actually like enjoy the win when we do make those initial sales because it's very easy to be like, she probably just like kind of thought she felt sorry for me or whatever. And I'm like, no, that's not how it works. People don't part with their money that way. So if they bought it, it's because they see the value. And so I think every time you make those initial sales and you're trying to get over this is like kind of revel in the fact that people saw the value and that you can keep bringing that value to other people.
Yeah, because I don't think I've ever been very salesy, and I don't even describe myself that way. Instead, I just try to listen to what people need and then fulfill that need. And if they want to pay me to fill that need for them, then that's great. If they don't, then, best of luck to them. I don't really care. I'll move on to the next person. So I don't like harass them with email chains. I don't bug them. Like they'll make their decision and then like we'll both move on for better or for worse. And that's fine. So I don't put it like on myself personally of like, oh, I didn't sell them enough, or I didn't push them enough. I didn't convince them enough. It's like I don't really have to do the convincing. I just lay out, what I offer. And I know a lot of women too struggle with that like imposter syndrome. And I know that's big. It's like it just from what I've heard in these communities through networking and stuff is like, well, I don't feel like I'm good enough, or I don't feel like I am an expert yet, or I need to train more, I need to practice more, I need to, do this or that. And as I've grown my business and I've worked with larger businesses and CEOs and owners of businesses that are bringing in, 2+, $3+ million a year, a lot of them don't know what they're doing either. So a lot of them are flying by the seat of their pants and just showing up every day guessing. And so if they can just guess with their business as a what we would measure as a successful CEO, we can feel successful in what we're offering to our audiences, and have confidence in that. And I think, yeah, it just comes down to confidence and being assured that what you're offering to people, feels right and that you are doing a good thing. And that's all that matters.
Can I add one closing note on that? It's like a gut litmus test. Does this add value? Is it about, I forgot who said it earlier, Frenchie. Is it about them or is it about me? Those are your litmus tests. So if you're posting something that doesn't add value for anybody else, then that's where the like comes in. But if it adds value and it's about them, that should be your like gut test.
I took some notes because I was like, didn't want to lose my train of thought. Sometimes I do that all the time. I'm like, want to say something and I take notes, and then I'm like, what did I want to say? So first of all, salesy, what does that even mean? Like when you get an email from Lululemon, are you pissed off that they sent you an email like to sell you their brand new purse or their brand new leggings or whatever? No, of course you're not. You're excited to get those emails. If I think about the emails that I'm subscribed to for coaches or whatever, I get excited about getting their offers in my inbox because I want to see what they're up to, if it's something that might help me or whatever. I do not get tired of people selling their things on the internet. I just don't. And most people don't. And in fact, I think that it serves as a reminder for us to like, oh yeah, she has that thing for sale. I'm going to have a check at that later or whatever. And the other thing is that I think that the whole, because we were talking about the fear of showing up and all that stuff, I think honestly, the whole of everything is a package deal. And I think that if you're doing a good job with your email marketing, which we should all be doing because that's ours, right? And we can have a whole training on just that. But emails for sure, like 100%, and then decide where you want to play to supplement that, whether it's a podcast, whether it's a YouTube channel, whether it's showing up on your stories on Instagram or Facebook or whatever. As it's kind of like a combination, a package deal that just kind of shows the who you are as a human being, what your voice sounds like. It creates that connection with the people who are interested in buying from you. And I love it when I go on stories and I see Haley dancing in the studio or whatever, right? Like I love that. Because that creates that connection with her, and people want that more and more and more. We want to feel connected to the people that we're going to buy from. And then when she does make the sale, I'm like, excited about seeing, what she's offering or what her sale, what, her offers are or whatever. And this is what the last thing I want to say. And more and more, and I need to work on this. I'm not perfect, but if I told you that the only thing you had to do to create that level of success in your business was showing up, would you drop everything and just do it? I know, like, it's not that hard. It's not life or death. And we put this thing in our head about having fear of showing up online. Just do it. Have 30 seconds of courage. And honestly, with all the filters that we have now, there's no excuse. And we don't have to start with your face. You can start with your hands and a cup of coffee. Like, it doesn't have to be this whole production of you showing up with your face on the internet, right? Like, I think that, anyway, I could go on, but you get the point.
This just reminds me of the Demi Lovato song, Confidence. Does anyone know it? It's like, what's wrong with being confident? Oh, yeah. You don't want to hear me sing. I think we've all touched on so many great things. And I just want to say, in my experience, confidence isn't this inherent personality trait. It's a skill, it's reps. Like, even all of us talking here, we've all probably I've spoken at over 60 conferences and events and online, and it's just reps. And I would say if anyone wants to start doing this, like, start small, like start even with a friend or your partner and speak out loud an idea that you haven't articulated or verbalized it to someone before. It's just been in your head. Like, that is literally the first step, just saying out loud, either to the mirror or to someone who isn't going to judge you. And I think this is the thing about confidence, is it's such a paradox. To build the confidence, you have to fail, stumble, be afraid, and then you have to face your fear and show up anyway. So I looked up the lyrics while we were talking of the rest of the song, because Demi Lovato is going to give us some confidence. She says, I'm not going to sing it. I used to hold my freak back. Now I'm letting go. I make my own choice. Bitch, I run this show. So take a little bit of energy from her and just try it, but do it in a baby step way that doesn't freak you out.
Quinn, I don't even know what to say to that, because I'm just like, that was so females on fire level energy to be like, we're just going to bring up a random Demi Lovato song and it applies. I love it. I love you. Julie, I love that you were tying it back too to all of that. We kind of came full circle with it again. And this is what I love about this group of women and all of our speakers, because you guys tie it together so beautifully. I'm going to really aggressively shift gears to another question, because I really want to ask it and I can't find a way to tie it into what we just said. So I'm going to aggressively shift gears, and then we're going to start to wrap up with just a couple of questions from the chat. So my final question for you speakers, how do you use your money to make more money? Because I know we've talked about intentionality, and we've talked about confidence, and we've gotten into all of these things that do factor into making money. But I want to talk about the really tangible money for a second. And this doesn't necessarily even have to be investing. If you are an investor, we'd love to hear about that too. But it doesn't even necessarily have to be investing. Quinn, you kind of touched on this way, way earlier on the panel of just take that money and then use it to go make more money and use it to invest back in the business. And so I would love to hear from each of you your own perspective on how are you taking the money in your business now and either investing that in something, reinvesting it in the business, reinvesting it in yourself. Like, what does that look like? What does that reinvestment strategy of your money look like for you? And how's it working out?
I'm happy to start just because I know I brought that up earlier of when I was basically moving from one to one to one to many, and I've guided my own clients through this process. And for me personally, I invested in a few things and not in the same way as an investment. I paid for a few things. I got an assistant for maybe 5 to 10 hours a week to take some of the dentist work off my plate because I had a lot of revenue coming in from those projects, but I needed to free up my time to be the visionary leader of my business to get where I wanted to go. So I couldn't be doing, the SEO work, Jacqueline, or like the manual work in that. So I had to really ask myself, where is my value as the business owner and where is my time best spent right now in service of the vision? So that was one thing. The other thing was I hired a strategist to help me kind of crystallize my idea for what ended up becoming my collective, which is the offer my scalable offer that I built, but it took me 3 years to get that off the ground. And then the last thing at the time was I also hired a contractor to help me come up with a Facebook ad strategy. That was a great first step for me because I have a quiz. I'll put it in the chat so people can check it out. And it was my main lead generator for probably 5 years. Where I was constantly building my list on autopilot, so to speak. And that ended up being a big conversion into my community. I have things different now since I'm focusing more on relationship building versus mass things. But those were a couple of things. Was freeing up my time through getting assistance, having strategic support on the high level to move my offers in the way I wanted to go. And then lastly, a contractor to help me expand my audience so that I had an audience base to pull from when I launched said offer. And I'm happy to say last fall was our 5th birthday. So this has been a long journey. So this was many, many years ago, but it's really cool to hit that milestone and know that all of these trade-offs and decisions were intentional to where I wanted to go. And I think you just have to remember, again, like the good things take time. And sometimes when you know where you're headed and you have to do the not so great things, it makes those not so great things more purposeful because you know they're supporting you in the trajectory that you want to head.
You
I-
nailed
I think-
Oh
Oh.
my
Go ahead,
I was
Fran.
just one
I
thing
feel like, no,
too.
I want to actually go after her because I feel, or after Quinn, because I feel like there's a tie-in here, which is that the most important and valuable business investments I've made have been in my non-business life. And I say that because, like, this idea of buying back your time, I think is really valuable and really important. And, like, I can talk about the coaches that I've worked with or this, that, and the other, but like the truth is that without the childcare that I pay for, I never would have been able to take my business to this point and not be able to take it further. Or things like, and this is very New York of me, but like I don't do laundry ever. Like we send it out. Like in New York, people don't do their own laundry. Like it's just like not a thing, and that's great. And so I think that just giving ourselves permission sometimes that I think I've had clients tell me like I'm not ready for a VA yet or an assistant or I don't know what I would outsource. And I'm like, outsource the repeatable things in your personal life that you know exist, right? We can still figure out how we standardize the business side of things, but like the repeatable personal stuff you can outsource. And so I think just looking at areas of your life, your non-business life, where you could get some of that time back to reinvest into your business can be really, really powerful. There is a point where then you need to hire within for the business, but sometimes the first place to look is actually non-business.
Yeah, I love all this. And there's not much else to add except there was one thing that came to mind that I've done is just paying to get into rooms with other people to build those connections. So there's like communities that people have created, whether that's in person, whether that's online, and they've already gathered the people for you. And then you go in and just build those connections. That's the only other area that I myself have invested back into.
One of the things, and I think, Andrea, you touched upon at the very beginning, is not all revenue is good revenue. And I think for your business is really understanding where your revenue is coming from, but also where and how you make money off of that. If you really step back from your business, you may realize that this particular thing that you're doing is not making as much as this thing over here, and how much are you having to put in it? There's a great book out there called Profit First, which is really about focusing on how you make more money out of your business. Making more money does not mean the top line has to grow dramatically. You can make a lot more money when you focus on the bottom line. And I consciously made this decision 2 years ago, which is if I'm going to do something, I want to make sure that there's a clear ROI for my time. When I went back and when I looked at my hourly rate and I started to look at my revenue and dividing that, by that dollar amount, hourly rate looks great. It looked fantastic. But I'm working for myself and I went and did the bottom line hourly rate. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I'm not making nearly as much as I thought I did. I could do better at, going and working back in corporate again. But what I consciously did was go back through my business and figure out where was I spending money. I was spending money on some of those people to go do my lead generation. And guess what? I never got a lead out of it. It also degraded my brand a bit because it wasn't who I am. It wasn't genuine about who I am. Um, I had the wrong virtual assistant working for me. I had someone doing the marketing where I could find, and frankly, I realized, and this is for me, by the way, this isn't for everyone. This is what worked for me, which is I didn't need to invest in the marketing because the majority of my business, when I went back and looked at the clients that I received, it was all from referrals and workshops. And so I doubled down on the areas that made the most impact and returned the most opportunities to me. And since then, last year, I had the best year I've ever had and made more money than I ever had. Is it a big, huge number like people are looking for? Top line may not be, but I go out and value businesses all the time. My top line number may not be huge, but my bottom line's a lot bigger than a lot of other people's out there. So I will leave it with that.
I think it's important to invest in programs and coaches, especially being super, what's the word I can use? Strict, I guess, but like understanding the value of a program and like going for the ones that are actually going to help you achieve what you want to achieve in your business. Because here's the thing, we don't know everything. It's impossible to know everything. I'm not a funnels expert, and I don't want to be, but I want to learn from someone who's an expert, right? Facebook ads, same thing, right? So if you're going to invest in a program, just making sure that it's in alignment with, that it feels aligned and it's in alignment with where you are in your business at that time. But hiring a coach, I think has a great, amazing, incredible place for you and your business, because they kind of pave the way, the road for you, and they can help you accelerate your success, right? I mean, yes, we can sit there and try to figure it out and whatever, but they're like that second person that can have like a bird's eye view of your business and help you put the pieces together quicker, and you can have the success quicker or whatever. So I'm a huge fan of programs and coaches. So that's kind of how I've invested my money.
I agree with everything everyone said and have done some version of that. I would only add, I'm sure that everyone on this call or who's listening in has some sort of financial professionals that they're around, whether it's your CPA, your wealth advisor, maybe even if you're not a client of theirs, but you have friends, your banker. Like, ask for what are the alternatives that you're not considering. What are some of the tax strategies? What are some of the income streams? What are some of the sources of capital or funding? Like, I guarantee, to basically everyone else's point, there are experts at these things. And so utilize that. It's not just about us doing more or doing less. Like, utilize those other actual financial products and tools to explore what you might not know.
I love all of this. So many good, different ways to invest and reinvest in your business and yourself. And Frenchie, I get it. I hate laundry too. So I love that. We're going to kind of shift gears back over to a couple questions in the chat as we start to wrap up. And so to our attendees, before we kind of close this out, we've got afternoon sessions coming at you right after this. Julie's going to kick us off with her session. So make sure that you're attending those, jumping in the chat box. Remember, we're giving away some prizes in the chat box today. So make sure you're in there, you're engaging, you're introducing yourself, because, hey, that's part of putting yourself in that spotlight, right? You never know who you're going to meet in the chat box and who you're going to get to know. And I know some of you are already talking about connecting outside of this. So that is so awesome. We are back here every day this week with another live panel and fresh new speakers. You won't see these faces again on a panel, but you will see them during their sessions. So leave them some love. And don't forget that tomorrow afternoon, we have another live event just like this for our attendees, where you get to network with each other. So as we're talking about confidence, putting yourself out there, putting yourself in the spotlight, make sure that you come join that. If you're watching the replay, leave our speakers some love. Go head over to their Instagrams. You can scroll down and see all of the speakers that were on the panel today and go connect with them. So speakers, here's what I'm going to ask of you really quickly. We have a couple minutes left, so I don't want to spend too much time on the questions, but I do want to make sure we just touch on everybody's. So I'm going to ask you to just, let's do like one, maybe two speakers answering each question and just keep them short and snappy and give them that really quick, high value that they need for today. And then if they've got follow-up questions, they know where to find you and they can reach out. Okay. So our first question was, what would you find the 3 biggest mistakes new entrepreneurs are making when trying to get their name or business name out there? And then what things should they absolutely be doing to grow their business? So what are some mistakes that you see people making when they're newer in terms of growing revenue and getting themselves out there? And what should they be doing instead?
I'm going to just add one thing, which is when I left my role that I'd been at for 20 years, I was intimidated by networking and actually making myself vulnerable and getting to know other people. I was always kind of in the room like, oh, they might compete with me. They might be looking after the same clients that I'm looking after. The bottom line is nobody does what you do. And one of the biggest lessons I had to learn was the power of the power of particularly the female network and us all supporting each other. And you break down those barriers. Don't be catty, be willing to take and get to know people and be vulnerable, be open. That's the big thing that has made a huge difference for me in my career.
I think too, sorry.
No, you go.
Okay. I saw the question in the chat. So I know she mentioned specifically on social media, what are the mistakes? And I just want to say that that might actually be the mistake in and of itself is, do you need to be on social media to grow your business? Maybe not. Not everyone does. In fact, even personally, I got my first client in a coffee shop. Funny story. I ended up meeting my husband the same way a few years later at a different coffee shop, but I think that's a big question is like, where do you need to be? Because I think that's the biggest mistake is kind of spreading out your energy across so many different things and not giving anything a good enough go to see if that's really going to be the best avenue for you. That could be a social media platform. That could be a revenue stream. It's like this shiny object syndrome. So I think there's absolute value in experimentation and trying things out. But I think you have to balance that with, did I give it a real go? And do I even need to be on social media yet? Usually that's when you are ready to expand your network to reach more people or you have a broader message to share. But I know plenty of entrepreneurs who are not on social media or who are maybe on one and they use it as a relationship building tool or like a, hey, I'm around, don't forget about me tool, like a sign of life. So I think that's the biggest thing is like, do you even need to be on it? And focus on where you can. And also go to a coffee shop. It worked out for me. It might work out for you.
That's all I was going to say is like, just give it your all, actually commit to something. Like I am not a big social media girl. It's not how I get clients. I use it more just as a relationship builder to connect and network with people. But what I see a lot from like the clients that I work with is they'll like post like once a month and then they're like, why don't I get any calls? So whatever your strategy is on social media or just being online in general, you have to just commit to something and go all the way, go 100%, and then you'll receive the feedback of if it's working or not. But you can't know that until you give it all your effort.
Love that, ladies. Great, great answers. And Linda, I love that you brought up networking just because I feel like so many people are just like, I'll network later. I'll do this later. I'll, whatever. And networking and collaborating and being in rooms just like this has been the biggest growth driver, revenue driver, audience builder for us over the years. So I'm really glad that you led with that. I think that was great. This one is really, we're using the word bookkeeper a lot. So we'll try to keep up. Any advice for a bookkeeper who has spent 20 years working on people's books, who now wants to coach other bookkeepers on how to do the bookkeeping? So that was a lot of the word books. But basically, what advice would you have for someone who is now trying to coach the people that want to do the thing that they've been doing to do the thing that they've been doing? Any just immediate advice for how she can get into that, how she can leverage that, how she can grow it? I feel like just off the top of my head, it's like you're the freaking expert. Like you're the best person to teach that, right? But I'd love to know what you guys think.
My first question, and this is just in terms of like how I would start to explore what your audience needs are, is just do they need help bookkeeping if they're already bookkeepers, or do they need help understanding how to build a solo bookkeeping business? And maybe your opportunity isn't just to coach them on the bookkeeping, but to kind of show them behind the scenes on how you've kind of built your bookkeeping business for 20 years. Because I feel like there's a lot of educational pathways for bookkeepers that are probably more like standardized and traditional and like the way that we think about education. But maybe the hardest part for people is actually going out on their own and doing it.
I think someone mentioned it earlier about personas. I mean, you know better than anybody else. What are the wants, needs, and fears of a bookkeeper when they're starting a business? And just speak into those, share your own experience, and it's all going to be relatable. And the best thing is when you can say, I know what it's like to be you, and lean into that.
Love that. Any other final thoughts for her?
I think with any of these things where we're trying a new offer or model, start small, test it out, just get a couple people, and also kind of adopt that methodology of MVP, minimum viable product. Like, what is the smallest thing that you can do to test this idea, to see if you even like it, to see if you can really help people? And then the biggest question for the people you're serving is, what is the transformation you're trying to facilitate? So what are they struggling with? And by the end, where do you want to take them? The middle part you can figure out, but that's the real thing. So just start small, just test it out, and then see what happens from there. But I see too many business owners kind of go all in on an idea before they've even gotten any validation or confirmation that this is what the market wants. And so they waste a lot of energy that way, or they put a lot of money into something that shouldn't have been invested in yet. So start small, start nimble, try it out, see if you like it.
I love that. I think that's good advice for anything, right? Start small, be intentional, do the thing. When you are in the cricket stage of your business startup, when do you decide to stay the course or make the change? I know we kind of touched on this earlier with like, how do you decide what like revenue growth strategy to dive into and when to make that change? But what's your advice for somebody who's like, I'm in that cricket stage, nobody's buying, nobody seems to be showing up. Do I keep punching at it? Do I keep trying? What do I do? Or do I say, you know what, I think it's time to throw in the towel?
I have two suggestions on this. First, don't think of it in terms of like a full year or 12 months or the big audacious goal. Like break it into smaller bite-sized plans so you can see if you're on course or pivot when you're not. So even if you're trying to decide like what comes before deciding and how will you get to that. So keep reverse engineering it so that you have more bite-sized chunks versus if I don't have 300,000 in a year, I'm folding. That would be one. Two, there's a technique that I teach often when you're trying to create like momentum of some sort or you have crickets. Pull together, do a quick audit of who in your network is really invested in your success or high level of influence, and do kind of a dream out loud conversation with them. And it's a 3-part conversation on which you say a version of, Haley, I really respect what you've built at Females on Fire. 2, I have a goal of creating my own version of that, driving 500,000 in revenue, meeting 2 new CFOs, whatever the goal is. And then if you were me, what would you suggest? So it's a 3-part formula that anyone can follow based on any relationship capital you already have. And I would say with a high degree of certainty that there's always some business development momentum that comes out of that. So if you're in crickets, then what you need to do is create, I think it was Frenchie's advice earlier, like, oh, hi, little Frenchie, is make it a 2-directional conversation on which the recipient, presumably your COIs or your super fans, become involved in your success. So that's a really easy way to create some momentum. The end.
I love that. I love that. Great thoughts. All right. Jamie asked, any tips for fractional leaders? I am doing a lot of networking, but looking for other tips or advice for finding clients or any adjacent revenue streams. Frenchie, we'll pass it right on over to you because I know you have thoughts on this.
Hi, she said Frenchie because I have to answer his question, so I just need a minute. I have a visitor. Hi, everyone. Okay, so quick thoughts on fractional work. I just started doing more fractional work, and most of my initial fractional roles actually started because I just applied for full-time jobs and then sold them on the value of fractional versus full-time. So my first piece of advice is rather than just like, not every company understands the value of full-time or a fractional off the bat, but if you can actually sell them into the value and potential, just a second, honey.
But what is the other rule?
This is why we work for ourselves. And anyways, just 1 second and then I can tell you. So I would say start by actually building the relationship through whatever channels are available, like even applying, and then sell them into why that fractional approach might actually serve them better. It might cost them less, you might have more impact, do all of that. So I would also add that into it. And then I think the other piece is that fractional work is sometimes confusing to people because it's like, is it freelance? Is it contract? Like, what does fractional really mean? And so thinking about, do you mean fractional because you want to be doing more corporate work? Do you mean, and you're really like, let's just say a copywriter who wants to do more corporate work, and actually that's more of like a freelance role. So I'd say make sure you're using the language that your potential clients are using. I think the online space has its own vernacular and language, and that doesn't always mean anything or feel very relevant to the people that we're reaching out to. And scene. Thank you.
I love it. And girl, like you're a mom, you're a business owner, you're doing life, right? So he's totally fine. We love that he said hi. Anybody else have thoughts on advice for fractional leaders? I think Frenchie really summed it up really well and beautifully. Yeah.
I chime in there, Haley,
yeah.
real quick. I do some
Go for it.
In the marketing space. I think networking, what she said she's already doing to get in front of people is key, because with fractional work, it's very much about relationships. So any way that she can build relationships or even build her authority, getting in front of those people as a speaker, where it's in a trusted space where she has that authority, go for it. And then in terms of agreements, you just want to structure it in a way that gives you sustainability. So whether that's retainer, project-based, kind of thinking through, okay, once I get those people in the door, how do I secure this for a longer period? But I found my best fractional clients to be a referral, a relationship, because we trust each other. And especially in a fractional relationship, you're like coming in on a high level and kind of directing them. So you want to have that dynamic from the very beginning. So I say, keep doing what you're doing and don't be afraid to get them on a call and kind of assess them in some way to show them that you really have their best interests at heart.
If I can add just one more thing to that,
Yeah.
because I've done fractional work quite a bit, be clear in defining your scope of what you're doing and what you're not doing. Because sometimes when you're coming in as a fractional, you're getting paid a lot higher than a regular advisor or consultant. And sometimes the expectations shift when you get above a certain dollar amount, and need to be clear on what that means and how many hours and the type of work you will do and the type of work you won't do. Speaking from experience on that one for what it's worth.
I love it. Yes. I always love that because it's always like, yeah, I'm speaking from experience on that one. I love it. So Jamie, make sure you reach out to Linda, Quinn, and Frenchie because I'm sure they have plenty more thoughts for you on that. Final question, super, super quick, you guys. Nice short answers. Megan asked, will it cost me more money doing it myself in X amount of time versus hiring someone? There's a big difference for me. So I think, can you just kind of speak super quickly to how do you decide when it's worth the time for you to do it on your own versus spending the money to get somebody else to do something for you?
I'll hop on real quick because this is literally what I just went through this year as with like growing my business and adding on team members, is like it was a total shift in my mindset of my time is worth money and I only have so many hours in a day that I can give. If I'm only working 8, 9, whatever hours in a day, that's going to put a cap on what I can do and how I can run my business. So knowing your numbers really well and finding like what is your hourly rate really worth to you? And then how can you bring on support, whether that be, a VA or employees or whatever, to take some of those daily tasks off of your shoulders, but to make sure that you are still making and bringing in enough money to pay for them. And that is really scary to do. But what that has made me realize is if I'm, paying for every hour that they're working, if I can spend that hour getting more leads and more jobs and growing the business and marketing, then it's going to return. Like the ROI is going to be fivefold, it's going to be tenfold. But it's really hard to like adjust to that. And it's a whole change in your mindset of like, you think you're losing money, but you're not. You're just shifting your money so that you can make more money. But it's tricky. It's really tricky.
Any other thoughts on that? On how you decide when to outsource versus when it's worth the time to do it yourself? Linda, did you unmute? Did you have something?
I was just going to say that if it's taking you a lot of time and you're trying to learn something that doesn't feel comfortable to you, and it's like painful for you to do, that's a good sign that it's probably good to find somebody else to do it. It kind of goes back to Frenchie's thing, which was outsourcing a cleaner. I've had someone clean in my house during the best of times and the worst of times, and that's one thing I will not give up is someone cleaning my house, because God gave me a lot of gifts and cleaning wasn't one of them. And I have much better ways to spend my time than doing that. So find those things that you don't like doing that are uncomfortable, and you know what? Spend the money so that you can free up, because there's more to it than just time. There's also that energy it can take, that kind of weighs on you before and after you do that task.
I love that. Yeah. Great thing to close on. I love that we went through so many things today, and things that we didn't even necessarily know had to do with revenue, like intentionality and things like that. But thank you all so much to our speakers. If you're still here and you're still listening, pop in the chat your biggest takeaway. Say thank you to our speakers. Let them know that the last hour and a half was well spent, because we are so, so grateful for them. And some of them are our sponsors as well. Andrea runs Prequel, which is our big sponsor. And then Julie and Frenchie are also sponsors for us. So give them huge thank yous in here. All of our speakers are so amazing, and we're so grateful. Attendees, remember, sessions are starting up in the next couple of minutes. We got a whole afternoon for you. We're back again tomorrow with more sessions. We've got our attendee networking session tomorrow afternoon. So make sure you are here for that, because you've got to network. You've got to connect with people and put your business out there if you want to grow and you want to succeed. So we want to see you there live. It'll be happening on Zoom. The link is in Hey Summit, where you need it, when you need it. If you miss anything today and you're like, dang, I wish I had bought that wildfire pass, go grab it. Find one of the speakers' links, get them a fun commission, and buy one so that you can get access to all of the incredible sessions for a year, plus some really cool bonuses from some of our speakers. You do not want to miss that. And we've got a full week for you. This is just day one. We are just getting started. So we are so excited that you're here. We're not done yet. Full day today, full week this week. But thank you so much to all of our incredible speakers and to our attendees for being in the chat box. We couldn't do it without you. We do it for you.